Hey, what's up, Streamkeepers, and welcome back to my channel. And in today's topic, I want to discuss with you guys about something more high level in the sense that, if you are just coming into this hobby and you want to look for information on actually how do you actually start this hobby, in a in a systematic manner. One of the things that I often hear about, I think this also happened to me, when we start this hobby, we actually go in and say, okay, I want to have a tank, I want to keep this stream, I want to, have this filter and things like that. And that's how the hobby progresses on. So you add more tanks, you add more streams, you learn more about the breeding methodology, the types of streams and things like that. However, if let's say you want to, kind of rethink the hobby a little bit, or you are more of a systematic person, or you are, coming from breeding fishes, keeping fishes, and or planter tanks, and you want to move into stream breeding, what are some of the things that you actually need to take note of from a high level perspective? And because a lot of these hobbies, uh, you guys already have the experience of keeping fishes, planter tanks and things like that. So you actually underwent that kind of the lengthy process of the cycling the tank and things like that. Purchasing the tank, putting in the soil, putting in the plants and things like that. So this video will give you a holistic understanding of what can be done in terms of uh, the stream breeding hobby, and I would like to really start on the very top of the list is actually the infrastructure of the stream breeding hobby. And one of the reasons why I put it as number one is because that is really, even in a country where you have developing countries, or even a developed country, you get a lot of these infrastructure changes like road building, new buildings, upgrading and things like that. So the infrastructure actually kind of like encompasses the network of the process and the system, which I'm going to talk on the second part of it. So the very first one is really about infrastructure. And what do you mean by infrastructure? So the infrastructure means that your planning. You usually start off with your planning stage, how big the space that you can actually allocate, and then after that, what kind of racks, and and then after that, you think about whether do you want to have a chiller or aircon, or that, I mean, that is for those who are living in the tropics. And for those who are living, in the northern hemisphere or the southern hemisphere, you guys will require probably a heater or things like that. So I think that's the same, it's just between cooling and heating. So from an infrastructure standpoint, you will then need to decide, what kind of rack you want to put in, how do you optimize the rack in terms of the number of tanks you have, what kind of water volumes do you actually have, and things like that. So there is no one right way of actually building up the infrastructure, because infrastructure, it is highly dependent on your yeah, on your available space. If your available space is that much, you can only have that kind of the number of racks, the number of tanks in there. And then of course, you have to do your proper budgeting. And then I think this is fairly the same when it's like running a country where you have all those uh budgeting, and what kind of infrastructure should come in first, and things like that. So having that infrastructure top of the list is fairly important, because this will actually in terms of the stream breeding, maintenance and things like that, it actually drives your system and processes, right? So that's the second part of it. So when you have the infrastructure all done up, you have all your racks, you have your filtration, you have all your hardware equipments done, you use aircon or heaters, and then after that you have your soil and things like that. So then it will guide you to your next step, which is your system and processes. So the system and processes is where you have to think about whether do you want to have automated or semi-automated water changes and things like that. So that kind of like builds on the infrastructure part. So if you have your infrastructure set up right, you have your semi-automated water change and things like that, then your processes, your weekly water changes and things like that will definitely change as well. So having the infrastructure done first time right, I think that's a very critical step of the hobby. And if you are very serious in this hobby, and those, I even have an example of a Singapore breeder uh, who have been keeping fishes for the past 20 years, and he started off this hobby with keeping fishes and things like 20 years ago. And then when he migrated over to shrimp breeding, he started off with one tank, and then he realized that when all the stars aligned, he wanted to have more tanks. So in the end of the day, he had like I think 14 tanks right now. And the feedback that I actually got from him is very simple, because they have been in this hobby for a long time, and they understand the pain and the agony, having to kind of like have a band-aid here, band-aid there. Instead of doing that, to have the infrastructure set up first time right, and that will actually help to solve a lot of problems later on. And with that, his systems and processes come into play. It kind of like fall into place, where the semi-automated changes of water, kind of like help him organize his time, organize his life around some of these things. Because at the end of the day, the shrimp breeding hobby is still a hobby itself. It doesn't encompass the entire life of you. So you have your family, you have your work and things like that. So this hobby is kind of like a part of it, and it shouldn't be taking up too much of your time, and it becomes an argument in your family. So it's not supposed to be that. It's supposed to be at the end of the day a very relaxing hobby, where you kind of like come into the room to really look at the streams, and then let time passes on. And of course, have that discussion, that social interaction with the different breeders as well. So coming back to the system and processes, I think that kind of like helps drive the time management piece of it. So as you can see, when we have a good infrastructure layout up front, then your system and processes will kind of like build on it. It helps do a lot of this time management, your water change and things like that. And of course your decision, especially for those countries, especially in Singapore, we are blessed with very good water. We can actually use direct DI to actually churn out pure water, where we have zero TDS in that. Then we don't really need to have any wastage using an RO. I mean that is depending on countries. So some countries, I understand that they also have very good water from the tap, but if not, then you would have still have to use the RO water as well. So the infrastructure piece of it builds on that. It gives you the flexibility to actually enhance your time management from a system and processes standpoint. And then once you have that all your system and process set up right, you have that all built into your daily regime, your weekly regime, your monthly regime, in terms of water changes, washing your filters, seeing your shrimp breeds, doing selective breeding and things like that. So if you are in the middle of this hobby, for example, if you are in the middle of this hobby and you want to upgrade your infrastructure, I think that is the third piece of it. So I think that's called progression, right? So every time you have this infrastructure built up first, and then after that you have your system and processes all done up, and then you start to have your upgrading. Your upgrading in that sense would means that okay, it is more like a smaller type of an infrastructure, where you put in like magnetic boards, or you put in magnetic holders, where you kind of like beautify that area. You enhance or you optimize the space that you actually have in there. So I think this creates a lot of new things in the hobby, just from an infrastructure standpoint. So having that infrastructure set up right, a lot of countries, I think, also focuses a lot on their infrastructure as well. So I think this concept can also be relayed into the shrimp breeding hobby, where you have your infrastructure set up first time right. However, of course, along the way you need to have upgrading of things like that. I think that kind of helps in terms of getting more new stuff into that into the space. And if if you run out of space, what are you gonna do? You can, I mean, if you have a lot of space, of course you can continue on to the next room, or you don't have space, then you have to rethink about how do you really optimize it. So I mean, in some of the videos, I've been chatting or sharing these videos with you guys about there's this guy who's Desmond. He started off with I think it was 8 tanks, and then we kind of use the same infrastructure, we kind of optimize that, and that improves his number of streams that he can actually keep, because the more streams that you keep, the more selective breeding that you do, the more tanks that you reset, you actually gain that kind of experience over time. So having more tanks does not necessarily mean that you have better streams, but however you definitely means that you will have to reset more times, and that in itself you gain a lot more experience in resetting, to optimize, to streamline some of these processes as well. So all in all, I think where if you follow the whole step of building the infrastructure, going out the best that you can in terms of the infrastructure, having that set up right, and then after that you have your system and processes, you refine it over time, and then of course then you, on the next future step, you'll be your upgrading, where you kind of like optimize your space as such. So this is this video is not really talking about the stream itself, but however this entire ecosystem, this environment that you actually create for the streams is highly important, because at the end of the day, your streams will actually live in the tank that you set it up. So regardless whether you have your heaters or chillers or your AC, all this will eventually impact the stability of the stream breeding hobby as well. So stability in that sense is really to talk about having it simple, but at the end of it, I mean behind it, you actually have a very detailed plan to actually make it look simple, make the process be simple, but of course have that complexity all taken out by having the infrastructure done first time right. So I think that is the message that I want to drive in this video. I've seen a lot of stream breeders who are I would really encourage them to step out of their comfort zone, take things one step at a time. It doesn't have to be right here right now. Of course progress is not always forward. Sometimes it takes one step back so that you can move 2 steps forward or 3 steps forward in that manner. So that's something that we have to think about in terms of progress as well. So thank you guys for watching this video, and if you like this video, remember to give a thumbs up. And if you are new to this video, please remember to subscribe to this channel, as we continue to provide you with more information from around the world, as we engage more and more breeders around the world to share different ideas on how stream breeding works in different parts of the world. So until next time, peace out.